Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry and we're back with another custom card video. This is number 11 and we're going to be covering move cards. This was probably the most highly submitted cards for any of these custom card series. So it was awesome to see so many submissions. Thank you so much. Incredible ideas, incredible artwork. The effort you guys put into these cards, it blows my mind. I can't wait to show everybody. So if you want to submit another card, you can jump to the Berryverse Discord, totally free. You can create a card with the link right there. It's in the description as well. And then you can jump in the Berryverse Discord in the weekly challenge channel and post one submission. If you post any more after you post that one, please go back and delete your old one. We're trying to just keep it nice and clean with one submission for everybody. Now, the next keyword for the next challenge is random. And I did not choose this. It was almost randomly chosen by the community. I honestly didn't expect it. I had three options. I think it was like copy, play, and random, and everybody voted for random. It had like 50%, and the next closest was copy. So you guys voted for random? So we're gonna do random. Let's see what you got. It just has to be a card with random in the text. So that could mean a lot of things. Let's get crazy with it. Now, if you want to participate in these votes, be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be doing this every second week. I'm going to allow the community to choose the challenge every second week, and then I'm going to pick the other challenge every second week, just so that it kind of mixes it up and you don't see my challenge coming, right? It only is announced when the video is dropped, whereas the poll will kind of give you a heads up of what is to come. So we're going to do that on a rotation, okay, guys? And a quick little note, I've changed the format of these videos to make it a little bit easier on myself to make these and put them out in a timely fashion. Before I was staying up to like midnight trying to get it out. So anyways, now you're gonna notice that we're not doing any honorable mentions and we're not even doing top 5. We're doing top 10. I'm always gonna do top 10 cards that I found in the weekly submissions, and they're just gonna be a little bit more focused on your cards, okay? So without further ado, let's get to my card and then we'll get to the top 10. All right, here is my card, Spider-Man 2099. Now, I didn't really get too creative here. I actually made this card previously when I did a prediction for the next upcoming seasons video. And then I predicted that this guy is going to come out when the Spider-Verse is released. It just kind of makes sense. That character seems to be a big part in it. Oscar Isaac is playing that character in the Spider-Verse too. So like, I feel like we're going to end up with a Spider-Man 2099 card. We've already seen variations of Spider-Man in Snap with Miles Morales and Spider-Man. So why not another one from another universe? This one's a really cool one, and I wanted to kind of play into the move theme by making cards move to the right, because we have so much that moves to the left, or at least the big payoff Heimdall moves everything to the left. So it'd be really nice if we had a setup that moved to the right. Now, the more I thought about this card, I was like, oh, this is actually a little bit weak, because now your opponent knows that every single thing you're going to play next turn is moving to the right, which means your left side of the field is very vulnerable unless you play Heimdall. That's actually a sneaky little play. You play Heimdall, yeah, he's going to get shifted to the right, but all your cards are going to go to the left. So now your opponent doesn't know, okay, well, I predicted they were all going to go to the right, but all of a sudden they're actually moving to the left. Nice little combination there. Or you just have those cards, and maybe you didn't get to, play them early on, like your Torch or Vulture. You drew them late, right? You don't have the move cards anymore. You used it for other things. Well, now you can use Spider-Man 2099 on turn 5, and then on turn 6, get as much value as possible from those leftover move cards. So Torch, Vulture, they're not completely dead in the hand. You can guarantee to move them at least once. So I just feel like this would fit really nicely in Snap right now, and maybe give move cards a little bit of an edge or a different option as a finisher rather than Heimdall whenever you're playing that move deck that benefits your side of the board. So I'd really love to see something like this along the lines of moving things to the right. All right, time for the top 10. Number 10. The Wall by Mark Randy. Dude, look at the art of this. Mark Randy said that he made it himself. It looks fantastic. I love it. The frame break and the text, everything very, very on point and thematic. It's a 2/3 and has the ongoing cards cannot be moved in or out of this location, which is interesting because to me, I think of Professor X right away, where it locks down a location, except with Professor X, he's also doing the protection of destroy, whereas this is like you know, if you combined armor and the wall, you'd have Professor X, essentially, right? I'm sure there's a few other nuances, but essentially you're just trying to stop things from moving in and out. And that could be really beneficial to avoid any kind of crazy arrow plays. You know, you can guarantee that your card at turn 6 is not going to move by arrow on turn 6 because you played at the wall location. It does have an ongoing effect, so it benefits Spectrum. You could get the Spectrum buffs with that kind of deck. I think it's actually really fantastic with armor because one of the plays I like to do is play Polaris and pull the armor off of the location that the person is trying to protect, and then the destroyer destroys everything else, right? It's kind of funny. The wall would prevent that. It would protect the armor, and you play into the ongoing strategy and stacking that one location, and you just get some crazy power elsewhere. Magneto is even an interesting one. Usually you play Magneto because you actually want to move the things, and totally fair. That's a great play. But sometimes, every now and then, you're like, oh, if only he didn't move those things, I'd be okay for power and win this game. So if you play him Magneto at the wall location, well, you have that option. If you want to use his ability, then you play him at the elsewhere, or you play him at the wall location to deny his ability. It's kind of like a zero effect. So yeah, I put this here because I thought it was a really interesting application of the move keyword. It's kind of in Snap right now, but it's slightly different. And I think it's totally fine for cards to be in Snap where they're similar to others. We see this so frequently with like the discard package all kind of being the same. So I'm here for it. I like the wall, thematic, awesome. That's why I got number 10. Let's go. Let's get to number 9. Number 9, Shuma Gorath by Snowpoint. All right, Shuma Gorath. I don't know the lore behind this one, and I don't know if the universes collide, but it reminds me of the giant starfish from the Suicide Squad. But I know that's totally different. But regardless, is 6/10 on reveal, move each player's largest card or card to a random location. So Chaos, you're already playing into the random effect, that keyword that we got going on here. But I like this because it's extremely, extremely disruptive. It also dependent on priority, meaning that if your opponent just played the biggest thing, but they haven't revealed it yet, it's not going to get moved, and their second highest power card is likely going to get moved, or the highest power at the current time of reveals. It was also mentioned by Snowpoint that this effect will actually move Shuma as well. So if your highest power card is Shuma, it will get shifted around, which actually could be really good, because if you play Shuma and you know that's going to happen, it doesn't matter where you play this card, it's going to move. If anything, maybe you play it at the location that you don't want Shuma to end up at. So now you have a 50-50 of it going somewhere positive, and your opponent is probably totally devastated because it's going to their card's going to go somewhere weird. Now, of course, there's the big caveat of if your opponent can't actually move that card, they have a full board, then this is going to effectively do nothing. But then it's 10 power, and that's not too shabby either. I mean, there's other plays that you could do on 6, but I think it's pretty fascinating. Or maybe you're buffing up your multiple men or your torches or whatever have you, and you want to move that around. Well, you get another copy off of Shuma. Then another one I thought of is Red Skull. Your opponents usually play into the Red Skull location because they're trying to reap the benefits of his negative ongoing ability. Well, if you move it on turn 6 spontaneously, well, maybe it's going to go to another location where they didn't stack cards, and the residual value that they're trying to receive is diminished. So they don't get that same value off of your Red Skull, which is great. Another one is Kingpin. Jeez, it's a turn 6 move. You got to always think about Kingpin, right? Oh my gosh, it'd be too funny. You move their biggest thing, and maybe the only available position is where Kingpin is, and it destroys it. That'd be hilarious. But you might accidentally destroy Shuma, so you really got to be careful. But then again, you could play Shuma at the Kingpin location, then you guarantee that it doesn't get destroyed. So I thought this was a pretty cool card. I love the art. It was pretty funny. So thank you, Snowpoint, for submitting. Number 8, Tiger Shark by Equi. All right, this one's pretty neat to me. I thought of something similar actually, so I was happy to see this effect in the submission. So a 3-cost 5 power. Okay, so like Deathlock stat line, let's say. At the end of each turn, this card attempts to move to a random location. If it cannot move, it is destroyed, which I thought was pretty interesting. You have to keep your board open. If your board's too clustered, Tiger Shark's going to destroy himself. Now, maybe you actually kind of want that. Like you're playing a death deck, and maybe you want that trigger. But usually for 5 power, you get the premium value of power output. You probably don't want that to happen. Pretty good with Professor X, right? Professor X will prevent it from being destroyed because it can't move. But it also just can't move because of Professor X, so you're just in a good spot. It just stays still. Another one might be Venom. You just totally get rid of the ability, and you get that bonus 5 power to Venom, and then it also kind of plays into your death destroyer package or whatever have you. And then Craven is a nice beneficiary because maybe you lock up the location so that Tiger Shark can only move to 2 locations. Well, then it's going to bounce back and forth and buff Craven repeatedly if possible. Now, you don't have that many turns. You're playing this on 3. There might be only 3 turns afterwards where this can move around. And you have to consider the locations might really make it a hard time for this to not destroy itself. Like I'm thinking like Space Throne and that gets filled up or something like that. Like, oh gosh, now you're limited on location space. Then you on turn 6, maybe you have to play those cards in your hand to get power output. But you know if you do that at the end of the turn, Tiger Shark's going to destroy himself and you're losing 5 power that you invested in earlier. So it's going to be really tough to pull this one off. But it's something I could just see in Snap. It just makes a lot of sense to me to have this kind of high risk, high reward card. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's pretty neat. Also, I'd love to see Tiger Shark in the game. I think it's a really funny and awesome character. So thank you, Equi, for submitting this. Number 7, Machine Man by Mark. All right, so this one's interesting to me, and I want to preface by saying this. I will say that this is probably broken, I want to say, just because it breaks the stat line of, things being typically 2-3. If they're 2-4 or 2-5, they have a negative effect to offset the power with the cost. So the ability here is when this moves, add a copy to your hand. And the reasoning was, and I totally hear Mark out here, it's kind of like Sentinel and Multiple Man, except the fact that you can't get an immediate copy, right? Multiple Man, you move it, immediate copy, immediate value. Whereas Machine Man, you have to pull it back to your hand, and it's not like Sentinel where it just goes back to your hand on reveal. You have to move it. So there's like conditions for this ability to actually give you some value back. But I think honestly, straight up, people would just run Machine Man for being a 2-5 because 2-5 is just incredible value. Like look at Lizard. Lizard gets a lot of play despite the risk of going down to a 2-2 because it's a 2-5. And yeah, there's 0 and ongoing, benefit things that help Lizard out a little bit more. But for the most part, I think people end up running that card just cause. So I feel like this could easily be put into a lot of decks without even needing move synergy or that, that big hand synergy. But if we were to try and play into that, let's talk about like the Collector is a great synergy, right? You get a bunch of Machine Mans back to your hand because you shift them around with Cloak, Iron Fist, a few of those move mechanics, maybe even the Bifrost is a location, boom, moves Machine Man over, and then you get another copy, pretty wild. Then you get benefit to your Devil Dino because you get those big dinos, you can play it again. Maybe even Moon Girl, and to get a bunch of Machine Mans in your hand, and that's like 10 power. If you have 2 of them for 4, that's crazy, right? And then a bunch of dinos. So the power could get really nuts with this card, but I really like the art. I think the idea is there, but there's just maybe a power imbalance. Like maybe this would have to be 4. It can't really be 2-3 because then it's just a more difficult Multiple Man, and 2-4 even is a really premium stat line. So it's a tricky spot. It just goes to show in the design and balance of the game that it's hard to have these effects line up with appropriate power levels. It's not easy when people are making these custom cards, everybody, okay? To make it balance, the art and everything. So kudos to Mark. I do really love the idea, and that's why I wanted to showcase it here, but it's just a balance thing. But great submission. Thank you for submitting, Mark. Number 6, Slyde by Lyman. Oh, dude, I love this art. This looks so good. He's popping out. You frame break this perfectly, my dude. And then the effect was really neat too. So a 3-3 after this moves to a location, give all your cards here +1 power. Trust, when I first was doing this competition, this weekly challenge, and I was trying to think of ideas for my card, this came to mind. I was trying to figure out how to properly word a card that would move and benefit all the cards it moves to. And you did it. You did it much better than I could have. So I love it. You just give basically 3 power to those cards if you have 3 other cards there. So with one move, this could maybe be the value of 3-6. But if you can't really move this to a populated location, then you're going to have a hard time finding value. You can move it multiple times, which would be great, but then you're spending your movement on this guy to give like +1s and +2s or whatever. Whereas like Vulture, Human Torch, those cards scale exponentially. So you kind of want to like focus on those ones, not so much your Slyde, but maybe there's merit to it. So maybe because it has the same power output as Multiple Man, we can slide those 2 together with like Doctor Strange or the Cloak, right? And then they're always keeping the same power level and makes it easier to move them around with Doctor Strange's ability anyways. And then big turn 6 on Heimdall. Heimdall squishes everything together anyways. So boom, you squish Slyde together with a bunch of other cards, you're probably at least getting a +3 power right there. And if you moved around before that, this could be like 3-9 in value. value. So it has a lot of value, but it requires a lot of setup, which is kind of a running theme and problem with the move mechanic, I think, in Marvel Snap. But love this card, love the art, love the idea. I almost took it myself. So thank you, Lyman. And let's get on to the top 5. Number 5, the Protege by Guilty Flagon. Oh, this one's pretty neat, dude. Copy any power changes a card gets when it moves here. A 3-zip. So I love this right off the hop, you know, like copying the power when the card moves. So there's a few conditions. We want to move the card to the Protege's location. Not easy to do. But luckily, Protege has low power, and sometimes the movement cards, like Doctor Strange, for instance, will rely on the highest power card to move there. So maybe we're moving a Vulture. Well, that's +5 to the Protege. Then we're talking pretty good value at this point. Going to be a little bit more difficult to get more power to them because of like location locking up spaces. But Heimdall, oh my gosh, Heimdall with Torch and Vulture moving over. Now, again, here's the problem, is that you're stacking all of your power on one location. So I think the most ideal situation is you move the Torch and the Vulture to the Protege location at some point, and then you move those cards off once more so that you can win other locations and split it up. Dagger's also just another insane one. Like really, these 3 cards, the reason I put them here is because they're the only ones that I can think of that really grow in power when they're moved. I feel like we maybe need more in Snap, to be honest, when I was looking through this. But so these were the only cards that would really work with the Protege. So it makes it super tough to pull off, but the power could get nuts, especially if your Torch has already been doubled a couple times. Dude, if it's like at 8 and it moves over to the Protege's location, dude, that's an 8 power Protege, 3-8. Even more crazy if it's 16 to 32, but it's really difficult to get your Torch up to those power levels without some location help or just perfect draws. Like it's challenging in the move decks, but I really like this payoff and this idea for a payoff, but it would be tough to find the wins. Honestly, with this kind of card, I feel like it could almost be 2 cost, just so you can get it out a little bit sooner to actually reap the benefits. Maybe that'd be too insane with like Vulture, you know, getting +5s. But hey, I feel like move decks need some helps, right? So I feel like this would be a pretty cool addition to the move package. But anyways, this was a really thought-provoking one. I really like this. It made me think about how many cards are in Snap that actually move and get buffs to actually benefit this card. So really thought-provoking idea. Thank you. Number 4, Singularity by Persona Trash. Holy, let's go. I love it when you guys make variants for your cards. It's so good. So Persona Trash apparently was holding on to this one for a long time, waiting for the move challenge, and with good reason. This is a fantastic idea. I love this card. So it's a 1/0, okay? So like no power, no value there, but a 1 cost, so pretty easy to get out there. Also can be destroyed by Killmonger. Let's keep this in mind. This card gets +2 power whenever it enters a new location without moving. Drewberry, how do they do that? How can you go to a new location without moving? Well, you can roll the location with Scarlet Witch. You can smash it with Rhino, turn it into the ruins. You could storm it and it becomes the flooded location. Maybe you want to slash it with magic and turn it into limbo. There's a lot of options in Snap, but they don't actually synergize with anything directly. You know, there's no like power increases except for Singularity whenever the location changes. So I think that's such a good idea. Now it would have to all happen at Singularity's location, right? So if you can imagine, if you play like, I don't know, Storm on turn 4, let's say, turn it into Flooded, and then you play Limbo, or Magic rather, to turn it into Limbo on turn 5, well, you have 2 cards at the Singularity location that have just kind of changed hands of the location, and you don't have that much power to speak for it. You have 4 power, right? You can maybe like do some crazy combos with Scarlet Witch and Wong, or like on reveals, and then just change the location on repeat, so Singularity's power just spikes. But I think for the most part, this doesn't end up getting to very high power levels. Maybe you do have like a location switching deck, and then you throw this in just to get to hopefully 4 power, and like that's the win. It gets to 4 power. It's a 1 cost 4 power, and you're happy with it. I think that's pretty neat. But I just love, dude, I love the idea of benefiting when locations change, when you change locations too, right? But I guess this doesn't even mean you have to change it. There's a lot of locations that change themselves, like Westview turns into a new location on turn 4. Perfect, free 2 power for Singularity here, so you just throw that down. Oh man, I feel I could see this in the game. This is such a sick card. And then look at the variants. Oh my gosh, we got Venomized Singularity. There was actually one that I couldn't add because I'm trying to just keep it nice and clean with 3, but oh my gosh, so many great variants here, Persona Trash. This was a really good card. Very unique take on the move mechanic, right? Because anytime I say these keywords, you don't have to use them as keywords as they're used in Snap. You can just use that word in the text, and this is just a creative application of that. So I really love this card. Thank you for submitting. Number 3. Prowler by Nogolov. This was just clever, dude. This was just super clever and just makes so much sense for what should be in Marvel Snap, which would really help move decks. And not even that much, okay? So let's talk about the card. So it's a 1/2. When this moves, draw a card. Okay, so there are 2 data mine cards that are projected to come into Marvel Snap. That is, one of them is when it gets destroyed, you draw a card, and the other one is when you discard this from your hand, you draw a card, right? So benefiting the destroy and the discard keywords to get some card draw, right? Because you want to do those things anyways, and then you're drawing through your deck. Great. It draws extremely powerful in a 12-card deck game like Marvel Snap. So what if we did it for move cards? You have to move the Prowler. Now you could draw a lot of cards with this if possible, but think about it this way. There's only a handful of options to move cards. If you're running a move deck, do you really want to use those on the Prowler just to draw through your deck? Maybe there's a new deck out there where it doesn't actually focus on buffing with the movement. You're just trying to shuffle around Prowler, thin through your deck, so you have no cards in your deck, and then you like, I don't know, have some like Exodia combo that you play. There's probably something out there. You guys are smarter than me. You could probably figure it out. Some of the obvious synergies I was thinking was Cloak, right? Because that's an easy setup. It's also on the turn 2, so you play Prowler on 1, Cloak on 2, boom, you move them and you draw a card. Happy days. Pretty decent power output as well. Iron Fist is another one, you know, turn 2, Iron Fist, Prowler, boom, that's you draw a card. It's fantastic. But then I thought, what about Thanos? I know it's a weird one. You're drawing a whole bunch with the rocks, but really with Thanos, you need even more draw. You gotta get to those stones, dude. You gotta get through your deck. So I think Prowler would actually help out. And there is the blue stone, the space stone, right? That is gonna move stuff. So you could play that on the Prowler, move it, and then blue stone is gonna let you draw a card, and then Prowler is gonna draw you a card. Boom. Double thinning out your deck. And actually a Thanos decks, most of them like to run a lot of other 1 costs, like Quinjet for instance, because you can either play Falcon to scoop up all your rocks again and play them again, stones rather, and then also maybe you want to go the destroy route and you want to Killmonger to get them cleared off of the board. You could just destroy Prowler when you're done with them because you don't need them anymore. So I just love this idea. This just makes 100% sense to be in Marvel Snap. I'm surprised it's not honestly a data mine card at this point in time. And the Prowler is such a cool card. Oh my gosh, you guys probably know at this point I'm hooked on Spider-Verse. It was such a cool character in that movie. So yeah, I just really like this one. Thank you for submitting. Number 2, Slapstick by Mighty Igarashi. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I've seen people do this sort of thing before with Slapstick, but this one knocked it out of the park with a hammer, wooden mallet actually to be specific, but so good. 2/3. When a card moves to this location, move it back. Perfect. Just so perfect. You can imagine like iron fisting something over and then Slapstick says nope, slaps it back. Hilarious. Even like good control options here, right? Arrow wants to move things over to that location. No, they go back. Something along those lines, or whatever. Magneto as well. Polaris. Who knows? But I think for the most part, you're into playing your vultures, your torches, or whatever. You move them to the Slapstick location, so he gets a free move back. And then there we go. We have the tool we need for the move decks to actually get to new heights, get those power totals where they need to be competitive. Sometimes I don't even think in Snap it's a problem of getting the power output that you need for the move decks. It's more so like having more options, and I think this is just great movement option. Yeah, you need other movement to help with this one, so maybe that's not so great. If you don't draw your movement cards and your movement power boosters, then you can't really make this work. But I think for the most part, you'll get like decent value. You just got to move something there once to slap it back. But this could be a detriment too. We also have to think about the negative sides, because what if I actually wanted to get cards over there? What if I planned on Heimdalling and I really needed power to go over there because I am not winning these locations? That Slapstick's just not doing anything for me. If anything, he's just laughing in my face because I'm just guaranteed to lose that location unless I play power at that location. Like you'd have to find alternative ways to win. But man, the art, look at the art. Absolutely crushed it. This looks straight out of Snap. Oh my goodness. And the variants, the creepy one, the pink smashing one, and then the like cartoon having a coffee and the just woke up Slapstick. Oh my gosh, sign me up. I'd buy this yesterday. This was so good. And can you believe we actually have one more? Oh, and by the way, these top two actually have animations. I'll roll them over while I'm talking in the studio. But geez, so good. We actually have one more, and it's mind-blowing. Let's get to it. Number 1, Peter Maximoff by Fran. Oh my goodness, Fran, you've done it again. It's so good. This is so good. I had to share this on my Twitter because I was just like hooked on this. Now, the card itself looks okay, but when it's in animated form, oh my goodness, Fran went the extra mile. And I want to also say this. Sometimes I get sucked in by the art and the animations that you guys do because there's an incredible amount of work that goes behind it, right? It has to be respected. But also, this one just straight up wins for the ability. Let's think about this in detail, okay? 2-1. On reveal, next turn, you can move all your cards, but you cannot play any. That is such a great idea for so many reasons. For instance, one, let's talk about like when you have to skip a turn. Okay, the Infinite and the She-Hulk have incredible value. So great, I can play this on turn 4 and then skip my 5, and then on turn 6 I can play Infinite and then maybe something else, or maybe She-Hulk plus other things. Who knows? Fantastic. 2, you can move all your cards. You can move all your cards. That's insane. That's so insane. I can move my Vulture and my Torch and buff them all up if I'm rocking them, or multiple man and move them all around. Oh my gosh, that'd be nuts. Not to mention, maybe I don't even want to run that movement stuff, but I just want to run a lot of power. Well, now my opponent's been thinking, oh, I've been stacking at this one location, and then I just move them all. I just move it all off there. Or they did an incredible combo, and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't commit my resources to that location. Well, I'll just move them all with Peter here. Of course, I have to skip a turn. And that's nothing to scoff at, you know, you have to skip a turn. But I think if you run a couple cards to make it actually worthwhile, like Sunspot is another one that could have been up here. Oh my gosh, dude, it'd be insane. This card straight up makes a deck where it's like part movement and part unspent energy, like passing your turns, which is just wild. It's so cool. And then thematically, oh my gosh, it's so good because Peter Maximoff, he's like Quicksilver basically, or whatever. I don't know the lore, it gets messy with him. But anyhow, he goes super fast, you know? But in the X-Men movies, he's like going super fast. The time was slowing all around. So essentially, my guy's just blowing by everybody, moving all the cards around, poking them like little bullets and spoons or whatever. But then when it's all said and done, he's passed a turn. I don't know. I just thought it was so good. And as you can see with the animation, so good. Just everything was 10 out of 10 with this card for me. So I just loved it, and I wish it was in Marvel Snap. Honestly, it might honestly be too overtuned. I don't know. You guys got to let me know how you feel about these cards and their power levels. But we can't deny movement needs a little bit of love. So if it's got to be this, then so be it. I'm here for it. All right, and that's the move challenge. So those are your top 10. Let me know how you feel about this format or anything I can change. I'm trying to make it a little bit more manageable. But, you know, like incredible submissions, everybody. There are no wrong submissions. You all absolutely crush it. I'm looking forward to the random challenge. That's going to be absolutely chaotic. So I'm really curious to see what you guys come up with. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.